A young girl who shot dead her abusive father now may face life in prison, sparking national outcry over the treatment of domestic violence survivors. On July 28th, 14-year-old Bresha Meadows allegedly killed her father, Jonathan Meadows, with a bullet to his head as he slept. Only 2 months earlier, Bresha had run away from home, telling relatives she was scared for her life, quote, because her father was beating her mother and threatening to kill the whole family, unquote. This is Bresha's aunt, Sherry Latessa, speaking to WKBN in Cleveland.
He controlled her, and it was like she was in jail. They've all been through it, and nobody in that county that we called would do anything for those kids. She told on him that you tell the kids to tell, and then what happened? Nobody did anything. She did what she was supposed to do, that this was wrong. She even knew it was wrong, what was going on her whole life, and nobody helped her.
There is a murder charge against the child.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. She, if anything, did it for her mother. She definitely did it for her mother. She said, now, Mom, you're free.
Bresha's father, John Meadows, reportedly made life for his family a living hell, routinely attacking his wife, Bresha's mother, by breaking her ribs, puncturing her blood vessels, blackening her eyes, and slashing her body. Meadows reportedly once punched his wife so hard that she heard her teeth crack. Later, she had to have those teeth removed. He also apparently slammed her head into the wall, stomped on her, and kicked her in the face. Jonathan Meadows' siblings have denied allegations of domestic violence. His brother told Fox 8 News this has nothing to do with abuse. And his sister, Lena Cooper, called his death cold and calculated.
You know, he drank a little bit. He had the ways he did things. But my brother was, I literally say he would have given his life.
This was cold and calculated. My brother was murdered. It was cold and calculated. He was murdered in his sleep. There was no signs of abuse.
On Tuesday morning, supporters and family members gathered for Bresha's first pretrial hearing. Over 6,000 people have signed a petition calling on Trumbull County prosecutors to drop charges against the child. Bresha is being held in a juvenile detention center in Warren, Ohio, where she faces aggravated murder charges, a charge that could carry a life sentence if she's tried and convicted in adult court. Bresha just spent her 15th birthday behind bars. Well, for more, we're joined right now by 3 guests. In Cleveland, Ohio, we're joined by Martina Latessa, Bresha Meadows' aunt, and a Cleveland police officer in the domestic violence unit. We're also joined by Ian Friedman, a criminal defense attorney representing Bresha Meadows. He's an adjunct law professor at Cleveland Marshall College of Law. And here in New York City, we're joined by Victoria Law, freelance journalist, author of Resistance Behind Bars, The Struggles of Incarcerated Women. Her recent article for Rewire is headlined, What Bresha Meadows, Arrested for Shooting Her Father After Reported Abuse, Faces Next. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Victoria, just lay out this story for us. When did this happen? How old was Bresha? And talk about what's happened since.
So on July 28th, Bresha Meadows, who is then 14 years old, so a child, was arrested for allegedly shooting her abusive father in the head with a gun that he had used to threaten his family numerous times. So she had endured years and years of abuse. According to Bresha's mother, the abuse had started when she was pregnant with their first child, who is now 21 years old. So she had endured decades of abuse, and this was violence and threats and belittlement and ridicule were constant in Bresha's house. She had run away twice. Her aunt had reported the abuse to child services. Nothing ever came of that. Her mother had tried to leave once before and had even filed for an order of protection. As many of your viewers may know, in situations involving domestic violence, it often takes somebody 7 to 10 times to leave before they are able to successfully leave their abuser. And as we've seen in many cases, leaving is often the most dangerous time for a survivor and her family to leave an abuser.
And so then explain the night that Bresha killed her father.
So Bresha's father was sleeping. He had come home earlier that day. She had gone into her room to avoid the abuse, from what I understand. And he When he went to sleep, nobody is sure, and I don't know if her lawyer can give more details or wants to give more details at this time, since she is still pre-trial. He was sleeping, and she shot him with the gun that he used to threaten his family. And again, this is, if you put yourself in the shoes of a 14-year-old, she saw this as a last resort. Nobody else was helping her. The police weren't helping her. Child Protective Services weren't helping her. None of the adults in her life seemed to be able to help her and her family.
Ian Friedman, you're her criminal defense attorney. Can you talk about what happened in Tuesday's pre-trial hearing, and how long has Bresha now been held in prison, in jail?
Good morning, Amy, and thank you for having me on. But more than that, excuse me, thank you for finding this issue to be so important. As we talk about it, it really is just such a tragedy. And what I have learned, even just in the short time I've been involved, is just how widespread this sort of violence is out there. So I'm really glad we're talking about it this morning. Yesterday at the pretrial, what we did was we just exchanged evidence, the defense, the prosecution. We talk about where we're going with the case, potential resolutions. We set future dates, and we really are just discussing kind of the beginning of the procedure. So Bresha has been in the Juvenile Detention Center since that night, the night of the incident. She will remain in there at least until the next pretrial, which will be October 6th. And at that time, we'll revisit whether or not there is cause to have her released while the rest of the case remains pending. So
how long has she been jailed at this point?
She's been jailed now over a month since the night of the incident. She's been in there.
Mm-hmm. Martina Latessa, you are Bresha's aunt. Can you talk about what you understood before that night?
I understand that there were mental abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse. The kids didn't get, hit. That was my sister Brandi who got that, but those kids had to watch that, including Bresha. They had to sit there, and he did cuss at them and call them names. From my understanding, Bresha wasn't even allowed to be in the same room as her father once she ran away the second time. He would tell her, get out of here, go up in your room, get out of my face, you disgust me. My sister Brandi was abused, pushed around and punched and smacked and kicked while all of her children watched. And it did take a toll on her. She did run away, and she, told me about it, and she expressed great fear for herself and her family.
I want to turn to your sister for a moment, to Brandi Meadows, Bresha's mother, who spoke to Fox 8 Cleveland. She called Bresha her hero.
I'm sorry, Bresha. I love her. You're my hero. She helped us all. And she's my hero, our hero. And now we need to move forward and have us a better life.
So that's Brandi Meadows, who was beaten for a long time. Latessa, did you know about, Martina, did you know about your sister, the abuse of your sister?
I found out about it in 2011, so around 5 years ago. She did go back, and that is normal for victims of domestic violence to go back. She loved him, and she wanted her family to be together, and she's told me in conversations, he's told her, I'm not going to hit you anymore, we're going to be better, and she went back, and, that's normal for domestic violence victims to do and experience, and it's hard for people who don't understand domestic violence, who don't live in it, who's never grown up in it, that is where she's gonna do that. And I explained that even to my own mom and my family, that it's normal. Even though it's hard for us to understand, it is normal in domestic violence.
So you're an expert in this. You're a police detective who deals with domestic violence?
I'm not an expert, but I am a detective in our Cleveland Police Domestic Violence Unit. I handle cases every day. I deal with victims every day, and advocates and, prosecutors and judges every day.
Have you seen a case like this before?
No, even in almost 17 years of being a police officer, I have never seen anything like this.
Can you tell us a little about Bresha?
I don't. They were so isolated that I barely know them. I barely know my sister and her family. So in 2011, when she ran away, we seen them, and probably 7 years before that, we seen them around Christmas time when I went down there. But they were so isolated that I don't know them. But I do know, you know, the 2 times that Bresha ran away and she came to me. She was a little girl. She was scared. She was asking me for help. You know, I took her things. She came with no coat. I even remember I got her a little North Face jacket that she wanted. And then when she got home, her father took it from her, told her he can't have anything that came from me. When she ran away the second time, I, you know, took her again. She didn't have anything, and we bought her stuff. And when she was told she had to go back, she was terrified. And she wouldn't even take a hair conditioner back with her that I bought her because she was afraid her dad, what he would do if he found out she had something like that.
Did you know that at the time? Were you concerned?
Oh, I was very concerned. I didn't know like the jacket incident and how he felt until she ran away again in the end of May of 2016 this year, just a couple months ago. And that's when I got a little bit more light, you know, on the situation. And she told me, you know, he's hitting her again. He just put her up against the wall. He, you know, they say choked, but he strangled her. He threatened to kill him. She said he's, you know, bashed her head into a wall, and, you know, I just can't take it anymore. You know, please help me. I'm afraid, you know. And I do believe her. I said, like, you know, Johnny Meadows kept that family in a box. And I believe, and I still say it, if this didn't happen, my sister would have been in a box, which is a casket being put in the ground, if this incident didn't happen.
Is there anything you could do, not just as her aunt, but as a Cleveland police detective specializing in domestic violence when you learned what was happening to the family?
Yeah, you know, I went down there the very first time, you know, she ran away in 2015. I got the phone calls from the police, like, bring her back, and I went and got her, and I took her back, and I talked to an officer there and a female sergeant, and I let them know, you know, what's going on. And I understand, like, as a policeman, if the victim's gonna not cooperate, you know, there's almost like nothing we can do. As a human, as her aunt, as my sister's sister, even as a police officer, there's no way I can knock on that door, go in that house, and do that. And people don't understand it. Well, she's a policeman. I can't. I might as well went in that backyard and dug my sister's grave if I ever got involved like that. Like, I knew, especially me, he did not like me. He didn't like me because I was a policeman. He did not like police officers. I just truly believe if I couldn't go in there, I would make it worse, if not deadly for her.
Victoria, you wrote a long piece about this, Victoria Law. How did the system fail, Bresha?
The system failed Bresha in so many different ways. When her mother filed for an order of protection, I mean, there are no resources for domestic violence survivors and their families. I mean, there are battered women's shelters, there are abuse hotlines, but there are no safe places to go. There's no counseling. You need things like affordable housing and ways for people to be able to get out and stay out. When her aunt called child services the second time that Bresha ran away, they didn't do anything to make sure that she was safe, that her family life was safe. According to her aunt, when they interviewed Bresha's parents, they interviewed them together, which means that her mother is not going to say that there is abuse in the house.
They interviewed her mother and her abuser together.
Yes, from what I understand, they were interviewed together. They didn't separate them so that they could find out what was going on, and they returned Bresha to the house. So there are so many different ways in which the system could have intervened and done something before Bresha, as a 14-year-old, as a very scared 14-year-old, thought that she had to do what she did to protect her family.
Ian Friedman, can you talk about the outpouring of support, but also the fact that the father's family, Jonathan Meadows' family, denies that there was domestic violence?
Well, I'll speak to the family first. It's not unusual, even for when I stand before judges and I'm representing someone who really did murder someone. There's always family behind them saying, but he's a good person and please go easy on him. So this doesn't surprise me at all. And they're mourning, and they may not know the full story, in all fairness to them. But I think that the evidence is going to be impossible to refute. And at some point, they're going to have to face it and accept it. Now, as far as the outpouring of support, it has been coming literally from across the globe. My office has just been flooded with mail and emails and calls from people, you know, that want her to know that that she's being supported and prayed for. Gifts are being sent. Even a group of women sent a big box of painted rocks to my office, which was very nice, you know, with little sayings of encouragement. Of course, I can't bring that to the jail, but she can certainly see a photo of it. The petition that we received yesterday, now over 7,000 people who are calling for Bresha's release. So it really is incredible. But the one area that has surprised me in the mail that I've received is that I have received no less than probably a half dozen letters from other people who were in similar sorts of situations, and some of them had to take the same sort of action against their spouses, or I'm sorry, against their parents. And so it really, when I first read the first one, I was really shocked by it, and I've just gotten more and more. This is really touching people and having them kind of come out and to let her know, they're asking to let her know that, hey, you're not alone. I had to go through this also. So as we started your program, that's why I felt this was so important to really, not just with Bresha, but to also bring attention to kind of the wider spread problem across this country.